right, let's get it. It's Jay Stokes, the ICMC, JSWANG, Jay Stokes, Jay Swang, you can call me. And I got on the line with me right now an artist in Japan who has been making his voice heard on multiple platforms through social media, music, TV, and is now as one half of the music duo fusing rock, hip hop, and pop. Moondahlia, Nayokenza. What's up, bro? How you doing? Welcome to the Jay Stokes Project, yo. How you doing today?
Hey, hey, Jay Stokes. Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to being on this. It's been a long time coming. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, like I said, we were talking a little bit earlier. I've been thinking about, or I was talking about interviewing you 5, 6 years ago, but I was in Germany at the time, and I was thinking of like talking about other things you had going on. But
Hmm.
now, you and your bandmates from Moondahlia, you guys have a new EP that just actually came out last month.
Yeah, just released it last month.
Last
Yeah.
month, most definitely, it came out last month, and then we're going to talk about it because I did listen to it. It has really cool vibes to it.
Thank
And
you very much.
you guys actually had a live show last night.
Yeah, we played a live show last night. We played like a boutique kind of like hip hop underground venue and U10G. And yeah, I guess I'll talk about that more in a bit and like how that was for us. But yeah, we're pretty excited about how we did. We're excited about the other shows we have coming up in the next few months as well.
How did you feel after the show, after you guys performed?
Well, I think for any band or any artist, I think immediately after you play a show, you focus on things that you could improve for next time, and then you feel excited that you had the chance to play. So it's like, that was good, but okay, next time I'm gonna fix this and do that and do that. And then you're like, but it was still fun. But yeah, so now being, a couple hours removed, like the next day, like, I'm still buzzing on the fact that we got to play. And, I'm looking forward to the next show this month and then our other show next month.
Most definitely. Well, you had your show last month, or last night rather. But your story starts a little bit before that, so we're going to go ahead and start from the beginning. You got many different projects and endeavors before Moondahlia. So we'll go ahead and start from the beginning real quick. You said you're from Orlando, Florida.
Yes, that is correct.
So,
Right here.
oh, you have it tatted on you. Hold
Yep.
on. Oh,
Yeah, I,
oh,
I love Florida. Like I was born in New Jersey, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but I grew up in Orlando, Florida since the age of like
oh,
5 to like 18-ish.
okay. So you don't really have any memories of New Jersey.
Nah, I have to just wet my diaper. Yeah.
So like that, what did you ever go back to New Jersey at all when you were growing
Yeah.
up in Orlando?
Yeah, all my mom's family lived up there, and my dad, prior to marrying my mom, lived in New York for eons. So we would go up to New Jersey, New York area, like I want to say annually, so at least once a year, because my older half sister lived there as well. So we weren't. It wasn't an uncommon story for people from Orlando to actually be from the tri-state area. There's like a direct pipeline of people who like transplant themselves down there. So like, at my school, for example, when I got to high school, a lot of my friends were from like, New York or New Jersey or even, like Pennsylvania sometimes. So like it wasn't unheard of for us to all migrate up there during like the Thanksgiving holiday and then come back down to Florida.
Yeah, no, that was the thing that I noticed because I mentioned before that I lived in Florida also,
Mm,
from the northeastern part, Jacksonville, Orange Park. A lot of people from up north love to go to Florida because of the
yeah.
weather.
Yep. And no income tax. So when you're retired, it's like a safe haven for you. But also my dad was running his own business, so the no income tax really spoke to him. So like, he could invest that in like, ridiculously large houses that he would buy.
So growing up in Orlando, how was Orlando growing up for you?
I always say that Orlando is like the Vegas for kids. And I liked it. Like, I really liked it. Like I consider myself to be very lucky to have grown up in Orlando. And I grew up like in a Cosby black family. So like, like very upper middle class because my dad's everything was, thanks to my dad and his own company. So like, when I was a kid, it was very often that my family was the only black family in like predominantly white areas, whether it be like neighborhoods or the schools we went to. Because we went to like predominantly like white Christian private schools up until high school for me. I decided I wanted to go to public high school. And I went to two different high schools. So my early childhood years, they were fun, like we lived in Celebration, which was like Disney's town. So like we were in Disney like every Saturday. My parents would just drop us off with like my mom's Nokia brick phone. So like, in your formative years as a child, that's amazing. That's great. And then when I got into high school and we moved to the Dr. Phillips area and I got to go to public school, I went to two different public schools. And then yeah, that was fun as well because I got to meet a bunch of other kids. There's a lot of diversity. It was still within my tax bracket, I'll say. Like the first high school wasn't in my was like beneath our family's tax bracket, which was so much fun because I got to mix with kids I wouldn't have mixed with at my lily white private schools. I got to mix with like, more black kids, more Latino kids, more Asian kids. And then we moved to another area that was a bit more higher income. And we went to Dr. Phillips High School. And they restructured that school after my second year. But still, like going there before they restructured it, I still had friends from like all walks of life and different economic backgrounds that I wouldn't have been friends with, 2 years prior at my private Christian middle school that was connected to my private Christian elementary school. So, and I'm going on a tangent, but like I was lucky enough to be in Orlando, like in the early 2000s, the mid 2000s, like when like all these different scenes were popping off, whether it be like, like the emo MySpace era, like, post-hardcore scene, or like, the reggaeton scene was kind of popping off with like the Latin kids, which I wasn't necessarily a part of, but still it was fun to go to clubs and you hear like Gasolina and you're like, oh, so I think to make a long story short, from like the hospitality industry that, everyone comes to Orlando for like conferences or for the theme parks. I worked at Universal Studios for like 2 years in high school to the mixture of like, the kids that were around me. I consider myself really lucky that I grew up in Orlando as a base, but at that time I was also coming to Tokyo back and forth too. So I started coming to Tokyo in my teens, like, every other year whenever I could.
So you didn't really look at like being in Celebration Orlando area as a pain because of the tourists, especially working at Universal Studios.
No, when I was in Celebration, I was a child. So I
Yeah.
left Celebration at like 14. So I
Oh,
lived
okay.
there from like 9 to like 14. So
Okay.
like, it's just like, yay. And then we moved to the Metro West area and we lived in a townhouse while we finished building our house in another neighborhood in Dr. Phillips. And in that townhouse area, I got to go to like my first public high school. And because it was like a townhouse, it was a different like tax bracket than my family was living in before. And that was probably the most educational for me because like I got to make so many like black friends. Like I made so many black friends. I found out what a New Yorican was. Like, I had a friend who was like dark skinned, and I was like, "What are you?" He's like, "I'm New Yorican." I was like, "What the hell's that?" He's like, "It's a Puerto Rican from New York," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool as shit."
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, and that was really cool. And then my family moved back to like kind of like another upper middle class neighborhood, and I went to Dr. Phillips High School. But by that point, the tourists like in Orlando, we have them kind of segregated because it's a car city. So like the tourists usually stay like an I drive and like they might stay on the Disney property. So they're not really bleeding into everyday life. Like if you go to the malls, they might be there, but the outlets they're there for sure because they have like shuttles that take them there. But
Yeah.
it wasn't like how it feels in Tokyo now where they're like tourists everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, we always had tourists, but they had their little dominion that they stayed in and they didn't bleed into everyday life.
Yeah, that's how it kind of was like the opposite for me when I was going to college. When I was in college, because I went to Flagler College because I played
Mm,
basketball for 4 years there. And
mm,
the campus itself was a tourist site. So we kind of had to endure that whenever we would go to and from class. We would go like, of course, if I had basketball workouts or practice, I would have to walk through the main part of campus. But it happened to be a point where like the tour groups, and I was like, we got to get to class, move out the way. But then at the same time, you also mentioned as far as like the diversity too, because I
yeah.
understand that when I went to high school there, like the school I went to was predominantly white, but we did
Mm,
have like a really interesting international presence. Like as far as
mm,
people coming from the Caribbean, we also had an
mm.
interesting number of Indians at my high school. So it was a really so I kind of see what you're saying when it comes to like that side of it when from the high school point of view in terms of like growing up and then hanging out with a bunch of kids. And then even then some and even like I think I remember I had a couple friends that were doing music in high school. And it
Yeah.
was like, yeah, so it was so even then they would take some of their influences from like their like home countries and things like that and bring it like and they brought it to Florida. So that was actually like kind of a cool
Yeah.
multicultural experience for me to a certain extent.